back to my channel. More recently I've been sharing a bit more about my editing over on stories. I think there's 3 big things I do in Photoshop, and so today I wanted to share with you those 3 things, and they are: number 1, removing unwanted things or people from a photo. Number 2, merging 2 photos together. So if you have, say, some beautiful birds in the sky in one photo and the other photo they're not there, but perhaps you like how you look better in that photo, how you can merge those 2 together to get the best of both worlds. And number 3 is cloning objects. If something is missing, or you want more of something, for example flowers or whatever it might be, then there's a really great tool for cloning things. So now I'm going to jump over onto my computer, onto Photoshop, because that is what I use when I'm editing in Photoshop. There is an app as well, but today what I'm going to show you is going to be on my desktop. So the first tool I wanted to show you, or the first thing I wanted to show you, was how I get rid of people or objects that I might not want in my photos. And so for this one, you can see there's a guy who was sort of standing here, and I'd like to get rid of him. So there's 2 different ways that I do this. The first one is great for if it's just really small and easy, and that is the healing tool. So I'm going to click on that one here, and you can change the size of the brush to suit the size of whatever it is you're trying to get rid of, and then you can just click and ta-da! That's a really easy way, but it usually only works well when it's something small. So I'm going to show you another way that I would use if it's more of a complicated disappearing act. So I'm just going to zoom in, and what I actually use for this is the pen tool, which is a really amazing tool if you want to do edits that have to be quite precise. So the way that the pen tool works is that you just sort of draw a path in exactly the area that you want to edit. So I'll just do that, and then you close the path by clicking back where you started, and then over in your layers palette you have a paths tab as well, and that's where you can then see the path you've just drawn. So I'm going to right click on that and go make selection, and the feather radius I'm just going to leave as 0, which means it's a really crisp line. If you want it to be sort of faded out a bit more, you can enter a higher number in there. So now it's turned my path into a selection, and what I'm going to do is duplicate the background layer, so any edits that I make are not to the original photo, they're to a layer on top. And then I'm going to grab the brush tool while my selection is still active, and if I click on the eye on my keyboard, I can get the eyedropper tool and just get a color that's really close to the area I want to fill in. So now I'm just going to color in that area that I've selected, and you'll see that it's only going to let me color in inside my selection. And then I will uncheck that, and you can see it's still a bit obvious where I've covered up. So I'm going to go back onto the brush, and I'm going to make sure that the hardness of the brush is down to 0, which means it will have a nice sort of soft edge on it and will blend nicely. So then I'm just going to go around that area that I just colored in, and you can see that it's sort of now going to blend in a bit more. And then what I might do is get some of this lighter color from up here and go back to my brush and make it even bigger and just blend that in a bit more. So now when I zoom out, you can't even tell anything was there. The next thing I wanted to show you is how you merge two different photos, and this might be the case if you've got two exact same photos where maybe there's certain things that look better in one and certain things that look better in the other, and you want to combine the two. And the other is if you want to add something into a photo like I did for this one. So this could really work for either circumstance. So whether I had this exact same photo twice, one with food on the table and one with me in it, or if I had the one that I got and then I actually got a totally different photo that had food in it. And when I got home, I thought, oh, I wish I'd got this picture when we had food on the table. So what I've done is actually taken the food from one photo and placed it into this photo. And I'm going to show you how I did that. So this is the other photo I have with the food in it, which is actually taken on my phone, but I've taken them both into Lightroom and edited them the same way so that they have the same finishing and lighting. And what I'm actually going to do is just zoom in, and the pen tool I just showed you previously, I'm going to use that again. So I'm going to use that to cut out the part of this picture that I want to take over into my other photo. Okay, so now I've closed that path. I'm going to do the same thing I did last time and make a selection on the path. And so now that area of the photo is selected, I'm actually going to go Apple C or Control C to copy what I've selected. And then I'm going to go over into my other photo, which is the one I want to use as the base. And I'm going to go and paste that into the photo. And then what I like to do when I'm merging two photos and taking one part of one photo into another part of another photo is to go onto that layer and just bring the opacity of that layer down so it's a bit see-through, so when we're moving it around we can really see what's underneath and whether it's sitting in the right place or whether it's the right size. And so I'm going to go Apple T so that I have the transform, and I'm just going to resize this a bit and also rotate it a bit so that it's, because I didn't actually get the exact same setup with the table. This was just a coincidence that this one actually worked in the end. So I kind of had to play around with how to position it. And I kind of had to squish it a little bit too because again it was a totally different angled photo. And so now I think that looks okay. I'm going to go back and put the opacity back up to 100 and I can sort of see how it's sitting. And now I'm just going to use the arrow tools to nudge it around a bit and get it exactly how I'd like it to sit. So I think that's looking pretty good. The only thing for me now is I can see the two edges here that don't meet up. So what I'm going to do is use my eraser tool and also make sure the hardness is down to 0 to give it that nice soft edge. And then I'm just going to increase the size of that brush. And I'm going to run it along the edge of the photo, of the tabletop I brought in. So then it's showing the real photo or the base photo underneath. Oops, I think I did too much there. I'm just going to start again. And sort of blending the two nicely. So I use the eraser and the brush tool with a really soft edge quite a lot when I'm editing, just to get things blending nicely. And that is how I combine two different photos. And the third thing I wanted to show you how to do is clone objects, and there's two different ways I do this as well. The first way is the easiest way, but it only works in certain circumstances. So it's actually called the clone tool, and it's a little stamp icon. And basically what it does is if you select one part of an image and then you stamp it over on top of another part of the image if you want to clone something. You can actually also use this to get rid of objects as well. But what I'm going to do is take some of the flowers from this plant here and put them over onto this plant here so it has more flowers too. So I'm going to make my brush nice and soft again so that there's no hard edges, and I'm going to make it quite small, and then I'm going to click the Alt key and you'll see the little brush changes when I click that. So that is indicating you're now in the selecting mode. So I'm going to just click here, and now that's going to take that part of the image and brush it on wherever I choose. So I'm going to go up to this plant here, and I'm just going to brush on some of those flowers. And sometimes you do need to reset it, because if you keep going, I'll show you an example. If you keep going in a straight line, you'll actually start cloning other parts of the photo because it keeps going as well. So I might just reset that down here and do a few more little and sometimes it can look a bit more natural if you get things from different areas of the photo, so you're not cloning exactly the same pattern or group of things. And so there you have it. That's how you use the clone tool to duplicate items. So I'll just show you quickly. That's what the plant looked like before, and that's what it looks like now. And the second way to clone objects is using my favorite tool again, the pen tool, and that's for things like in this image here you can see that one of these doors was open, and actually I think it looks nicer when it's closed, but because it's not a symmetrical item, the clone stamp isn't going to work for me, so I'm going to have to be a little bit more tricky. And what I'm going to do is get my pen tool again, and I'm actually going to trace around the door. And right click to make a selection out of that. I'm going to add a new layer, and I'm going to copy, oops, make sure I'm on the right layer. I'm going to copy that, and then never mind, it made a layer by itself. So it's pasted that onto a new layer. So now I can move that door. So you can see I've got this clone door, but you can also see the lighting's not quite right, and neither is the angle of the door. So what I'm going to do is just place it roughly in the right spot, and then I'm going to go Apple T for transform, and I'm just going to rotate it a little bit and just move it in a little bit more, stretch it up to meet the top of that door frame there, and then stretch it down as well, and just sort of play around with it until it looks kind of right. Okay, and then I'm going to click enter. And so now what I'm going to do is get rid of these edges that are showing up, and I'm going to use the eraser tool, and I think we can make this edge a little bit not so brushed this time, and bring that down, and then sort of just work, oops, too much, work around. Actually, what's going to help us here again is by making that door a bit more transparent so we can see where the wall is behind it, and we can be a bit more careful with our eraser tool, which actually I am going to make the edges a bit more brushed and just run that along there. You could also outline this again with the pen tool if you wanted to make it really precise. Either one would work for this, I think. Okay, so now if we bring our opacity back up, we can see exactly what's happening there. So I'm not feeling like I need to be super duper perfect with this either, because it is actually small when you zoom out in the image. So I'm quite happy with that. So when I zoom out, the only issue now is the lighting is still not quite right. So there should be more of a shadow on this door here. What I'm going to do is use the burn tool to create that shadow. So that's this little hand symbol here. And I'm going to make it a bit smaller, make sure my brush has no hardness on it, pick mid-tones, and the exposure is about 50%. And then I'm just going to run that over this door in the edge. And now the middle's looking too dark, so I'm going to change the burn tool over to the dodge tool, and that's going to basically do the opposite, and it's going to lighten things up. So we're targeting the shadows, and I'm going to run that over this side of the door until the lighting is kind of, or the colors are matching up with the door next to it. A little bit more. And so now that looks pretty good to me. And that is how I clone objects that can't be done easily with this stamp. So they are my favorite things that I love to use Photoshop for. Really simple and basic, and hopefully that's been really helpful, and maybe you can start trying some of those things out with your photos too. As always, if you have any comments, please leave them down below and I will reply to you. Any questions, give my video a like so I can create more for you. And another thing I wanted to say thank you for, in the past couple of weeks I've been getting so many messages thanking me for my honesty and transparency around blogging and what I do. And those kinds of messages, honestly, they make my day. This is the kind of thing that often I have no idea what people are thinking about what I'm creating, and I'm just sort of hoping that it's the right content. So when I do get that feedback, it's so valuable to me. So yes, a big thank you, big hugs, and I will see you guys next week. Bye!